Hello again. Welcome to today's webinar, a resource spotlight for the updated talent pipeline application here from the Workforce Development Council of Seattle-King County. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. A couple housekeeping items before we get started. If you could please put your microphone on mute, that will help keep our technical difficulties down to a minimum. Thank you for that. And for those of you that are familiar with GoToMeeting, as well as those of you that are new to it, there is a toolbar where you can put your questions and messages in a chat feature. And so we're asking, just again, because there's a few of us and we are also recording this session for other audiences to benefit, if you could please put your questions in that chat window. We will address them later on in our time, so thank you. And as also a part of housekeeping, some of you had signed up for a session yesterday that had to be canceled. Thank you for joining today. And for those of you that have colleagues that were not able to join today, we will be sending the webinar recording to our partners and other folk in the Workforce Development Council system. Please do email me. My email will be at the end of this webinar. I'll tell you who I am in a second, so that if you do need to forward the recording to any colleagues, that we make sure and send the link to them directly. So yes, my name is Hannah Mello, and I'm here at the Workforce Development Council as the Strategic Communications Manager. Nice to meet you. It is an honor to be here with Brian Pinnell. Brian, would you like to introduce yourself quickly here?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brian Pinnell. I'm the Director of Performance and Sector Partnerships here at the Workforce Development Council of Seattle-King County.
So to start off our time, this is kind of our roadmap. Brian, if you wouldn't mind moving us forward with our slides here. So we just wanted to set the tone of who we are as the Workforce Development Council. Many of you know us well. We've seen you even this week in meetings as we're working together in Seattle-King County Workforce Development. But some of you may be joining us for the first time. Thank you, and nice to meet you here. We want to share a little bit about who we serve within the region, our focus areas, and then getting into the demonstration of the application. And again, we have a lot of different individuals joining us from different organizations, and some of you have seen the application before when we launched it about a year and a half ago. However, some of you have not, so we want to make sure and accommodate your needs. We are excited to share that the application has been updated, and Brian will be sharing more about that later. So the Q&A will follow that demonstration, and so please do submit your questions, write them in the chat window, and or you can share them with us later. Thank you. I think someone else joined us. We're just setting the tone for this webinar now. Please put your microphone on mute if you could, just to help with technical difficulties. So we are the Workforce Development Council of Seattle-King County. We are the local workforce board here in the region, supporting workforce development efforts and a thriving economy. And we work with all job seekers, with all business and educators to help our region thrive. We're one of 12 workforce boards throughout the state of Washington, and we're honored to collaborate with them at a state level. This last program year, it was our joy to work with almost 6,000 businesses as a part of our effort to engage talent with industry, and 52,000 job seekers were served in this last year alone, and that is thanks to an incredible number of staff on this call that work one-on-one in workshops and in meetings. Thank you to those of you on this call that serve those job seekers. Thank you to those of you on this call that serve our businesses. I recognize some names on our call today. And we are very intentional about serving the sectors of our region by our strategic focus area of sector strategies. That said, our 4 focus areas are as follows. We are responsive to the industry that is local to Seattle-King County. We serve focus and watch sectors in particular, but we are very mindful of the needs of all business within Seattle-King County. We're honored to serve the region in WorkSource Seattle-King County, our system of now 44 sites throughout the region, and all of the staff and service providers are mandated partners that serve that system. We have a focus area of research and innovation, connecting labor market data like that of the talent pipeline application, which we'll dive into in a moment here, and providing other tools and resources for our region to thrive. And finally, youth education and employment, serving youth that are in school, that are out of school, that are young professionals in our region for the next generation of our workforce. And a note, all of this is made possible by partnership. So again, thank you to those of you on this call that are interested in this particular resource, because you are our partner and you are working with both industry, business, and with job seekers, our community members. So over and out to you, Brian. Thank you so much, Brian, for being here as someone that strategically made this application happen with our partners at Community Attributes. Thank you for taking the time to show all of us what is new and great and updated in the tool. So on to you.
Thanks, Hannah. Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to walk you through the application. If you've seen it before, this will be a little bit of a refresher. We have had the application online now for about 1.5 years. The interface hasn't changed much, but we have gone through the work of updating all of the data. You'll still find it on our website. If you go under the industry link at the top of the page, it's the 3rd link down, Talent Pipeline Application, and it'll take you right to this page that is showing on your screen right now. You'll have 4 basic options across the menu bar: the home page, which is where we are right now, the dashboard, occupation matrix, and methods. I'm going to cover the methods piece first. What you'll see here is actually the methodology behind the logic that runs behind the talent pipeline application. A lot of you may remember in the past that we used to generate paper reports for specific industries on a fairly regular basis, usually every couple of years, refreshing different industries along the way. Now, those were limited to a single or maybe 2 industries per report, and those reports could be anywhere from 30 to about 80 pages in length. So a little bit of light reading for, a summer night, but we thought it would be better and more user-friendly to actually put an online version of the methodology and the data and make it available publicly all the time, and then periodically refresh and update the data so that it's current, so that you wouldn't have to just rely on a written report for a single industry, but that you could see multiple industries at any given time. And that's what the application has been for us over the last 1.5 years so far. The biggest reason that we want to walk through it today is to kind of remind you that it's here, of what all the value that it adds, and also to let you know that it has gone through an update process in terms of the data. We look at trying to do this about every couple of years because the economy changes. So when to keep up with the economic trends of our area, we want to make sure that that data is valid. So if you click on the methods section, what you see is basically the logic that runs behind the scenes. Community Attributes did a wonderful job of actually building this into the application. What you'll see when you first go in is a very quick icon version of the basic formula for what we're looking at. An industry definition combined with a demand analysis and then a supply analysis gives us a talent pipeline. Same thing with the supply minus the demand tells us whether or not there's a surplus or a shortage within that talent pipeline. Now, of course, you can go down and you can really get down into the weeds of what each one of these things looks like and get into the deeper methodology of, what NAICS codes, which are your North American Industry Classification codes, are included, how those are compared with the standard occupation classification codes for each industry as well. So basically, what types of jobs are we seeing within each and every industry? Also looking at the supply side, we look at the graduates that are coming out of the local college and university systems, especially the community and technical colleges. You can get down and it'll actually tell you what the data sources are behind each different element. For the supply side, it's that graduate supply combined with unemployed insurance claims specific to certain occupations. So what we're saying is that, basically that supply comes from new graduates entering the career field, combined with folks who might be out of work currently for a specific occupation as well. Same thing with demand. You can actually look at the pieces and parts that roll up to give you that demand as well. And there's kind of a two-part piece to that. There's the growth piece, which actually looks at some of the projections in terms of what an industry or occupation will do growth-wise, but also combining that with things like replacement demand and turnover, which we are really starting to see some big trends in the turnover department because of replacement demand for folks who are retiring. So those are factors that are added into the talent pipeline formula. You can actually look down into the industry definitions and see what all industry codes at the 4-digit NAICS level are included within the application itself. And you'll see it's quite extensive. We have several different categories, and you'll see this when we actually run an example here in a few minutes. But those NAICS codes actually roll up to the 2-digit levels and give you that overall comprehensive picture for an industry. And again, just a major breakdown of what the pipeline logic looks like. So that's the methods portion of it. Basically just giving you a lot of the background behind the application, how it works, and the logic that goes on behind the scenes. So let's go to the dashboard now. This is really the heart and soul of the application. This is where the magic happens, so to speak. This is where you can actually get into some of the data. Now you have a variety of filters that are available to you. If you look across this bar right here where my mouse is, you'll see the industry occupation, median wages, education requirements, and an analysis level. And you can change each one of those settings. So say I wanted to see a specific industry, let's say healthcare. And for occupation level, I can look in and go down through this list and say I wanted to actually look at specific healthcare practitioners and technical occupations. So I can select that from the list. And then if I wanted to look at specific median wages, specifically around what might be considered self-sufficient for folks in King County, say we'll start with 60,000 and go to about 130,000. Well, 130,000. And then I hit apply after moving those sliders. Notice all these filters are changing as I'm setting those specific items. The results down here are changing at the same time as well. And if you look down below at that institution map, it's also changing as we make those different changes as well, because this tracks along with those particular degree program levels. So as we reduce numbers here, we also tend to reduce the number of institutions within the area that offer programs that fit the occupations that are now going to be listed. So right now we're at all education levels. So if we change that to just bachelor's degree, now what that does is it's going to actually narrow that field down. Notice that this changed, and it's down to just that bachelor's degree level. And then you have the analysis section, which goes economy-wide or companies within a specific cluster. Now, what the difference there is that there are occupations that are considered healthcare practitioners or technicians that may be in the healthcare industry or may be outside of the healthcare industry, but still occupations requiring typically the same education and experience requirements. So typically, we would set this at economy-wide. Now, if we were looking just specifically at the healthcare industry, we would select companies within that cluster. But for right now, let's leave it at the economy-wide option. So now, if you look at the different education levels, you can expand the results based on this arrow here. And what you see is it brings up a list of occupations, and it combines projections for employment from 2015 to 2025. They give you an average annual growth rate of anywhere from 1.7 to 1.9% for these particular occupations. And then it also gives you the annual supply and demand and what that looks like for each occupation. Now you can mouse over each one of these occupation results and get a wealth of other data as well. Everything from the annual demand number, again, the graduate supply there as well, the UI supply number that was factored in, as well as what percentage of the jobs are within that healthcare industry and which percentage are actually outside of that. And it also gives you the official occupation name, a location quotient, which basically tells you how many as a ratio of that occupation we have in our area compared with the national average, and median wages and the top industries and transferable skills for that particular occupation as well. And again, you can change these factors. So say I wanted to look at the education level at the associate's degree. Now notice I still got the bachelor's degree selected as well. So now I get both of those options showing in my results. You can select more than one level. So if I look at the associate's degree level, now I'm seeing a lot more folks in terms of registered nurses, dental hygienists, and this occupation list is much more extensive, and you can actually scroll down inside that area to see more information. The information presented is the same, regardless of the education level, in terms of the supply and demand information. But again, you'll also notice that when we added that, typically you'll see more results down in institutions as well, because now you're also picking up institutions that offer either a 2-year or certificate programs of some sort. And you can mouse over each one of these institutions in the map and see the number of completions based on reported what's called IPEDS data from the college system that tells you how many graduates their programs are producing each academic year.
So Brian, as you're sharing this, I can see the use of this tool if we're sitting down with a job seeker to find out what education or training or positions are possibilities for them. I'm also seeing that with this updated data, these occupations, these numbers are now hot off the press. They're the most accurate data points for our region, which is also useful in accuracy in serving these job seekers and potentially for decisions at the education level with community and technical colleges, with four-year institutions and higher ed, and even for business. As for those of us that are on the call that are looking at business, knowing what types of educational requirements should be used regionally here in those levels. So thank you. This is really useful.
And that was one thing that we really wanted to build into the application, was that it could be used by multiple audiences. It wasn't strictly something that was just for employers, or if it was just for case management personnel working with folks desk side in the workforce system. We really wanted it to be something that could reach across multiple audiences, including employers, job seekers, even researchers or media as well. You can go in, and because we do go through this process of updating everything every couple of years or so, we want to make sure that it is, you know, a viable, reliable source of data for the folks who use it.
Well, and Brian, when you were speaking in the beginning about the methods and how the data is culled from these different sources and integrated here, it seems like that could be a helpful learning point or talking point for those of us that are working with multiple audiences, to help them know that this data is out there, that this tool is available, and for them to understand how to use that in their everyday decision making. That's really exciting. Do you mind sharing, Brian, about the focus and watch sector language that's in that drop down? I know that here at the WDC those are familiar terms, but for those on the call that may not know, how do we determine what those focus and watch sectors are?
And you'll notice in that drop down that Hannah's referencing that there's quite a few industry breakdowns. And the first one, obviously you can look across all industries, but the next grouping are the WDC focus and watch sectors. There's that group. We also look at the Puget Sound Regional Council's major sectors, and then general census 2-digit NAICS codes as well. So we're really looking at all the different industries across King County. But those focus and watch sectors are particularly special to us here at the WDC. We go through a process every couple of years where we actually go in and we look at the data for trends that are going on in the economic labor market for Seattle and King County. And we propose to our board a list of focus and watch sectors that will help guide our resource allocations for the following 2-year period. Now, what we do is we actually look at a number of factors, everything from industry size, growth projections, occupation level projections, a lot of different economic factors, whether or not we have specific relationships with that industry that allow us to have some significant impact, or some of the subjective factors as well, and even the presence of industry associations and other organizations that are really focused on advancing the workforce for that particular industry. So there are a lot of factors that go into it. It's something that we take very seriously as far as making the right selection every couple of years. And you know, these particular industries are major presences in King County and are big areas of occupational growth. That gives you basically a quick overview of the dashboard section. There's one other section of the application to cover. That's the occupation matrix. The occupation matrix is basically a picture of how occupations fall across different industries. As we mentioned on the dashboard, there's that economy-wide or within a specific cluster, which is the industry itself. A lot of occupations, especially more and more, are actually crossing industry lines. If you look at a lot of IT professions, IT is in every sector at this point. I mean, there's not really any industry that doesn't have an IT section. So we'll find those occupations in multiple industries. Now, what you'll notice is that when you come to this page, if you've come from the dashboard, what it does is it migrates your selections from the dashboard to the occupation matrix. So again, you have similar filters that you had on the dashboard: the industry, the occupation, median wages, education requirements, and then again, the analysis piece. But you have a few more options. Down here, these view by options are actually live options. The one that has the filled in square is going to be the one that's visible on the screen. So for this one in particular, we're still in healthcare. We're still looking at the healthcare practitioners and technical occupations. Same wage range and education levels and economy-wide. So the number of jobs within these different industries are how it breaks down. Now, the way that it looks here, services are actually wrapping up that healthcare piece inside of it. So that's how that particularly looks. And if you click that next option down, you'll actually see the surplus and shortage. Here's the legend for what the colors mean. So what you're going to see is that if there's a shortage, it's going to show up more red. And that's where the opportunities lie for folks who might be seeking occupations, either training or transitioning from another occupation or moving up through the college and university system as well. So really, and again, you can mouse over these as well to get further information of what that looks like.
So this could also result, Brian, in talent outside of our region being hired instead of people in our region that actually need work, right? So this helps us make decisions around what apprenticeship programs, what on-the-job training to offer to help meet these demands, as well as for traditional education and training models to be developed as well for those of us in decision making.
And if you look at that definition for what they're using as the shortage right here, that supply is less than 50% of the demand. That's pretty significant. So what we're looking at there are decisions that need to be made around adding education capacity, again, bringing those apprenticeships into play as well. But employers are going to try to fill those needs by whatever means possible, whether it's locally or reaching outside of the area as well.
So those of us that are here in Seattle-King County, this is the power of the tool to help us understand where the work is for us to do and how to connect talent that we are working with at the job seeker level or the underemployed level with these opportunities. That's really exciting.
So if we actually adjust this just for fun, let's change our filters. And if we look at it across all occupations and all industries, you can see that everything changes and what happens there. But let's kind of take a look at all industries, but let's look and see about that computer and mathematical occupation as well. So again, you get a little bit spread out here and there. Now, sometimes when it says 0, it's not actually 0. That's a rounding thing because sometimes the occupation levels are lower. So the percentage-wise, it's less than 1%, but that's more of a rounding thing. And that, really quickly, is the occupation matrix. Again, the real heart and soul of this application is that dashboard application. This is the one where most folks are going to spend the most time and presents the most data rich displays. So in a nutshell, that's the application. We tried to keep it really simple, again, to appeal to a wide variety of audiences, and we tried to make it as comprehensive as possible at the same time, delivering a lot of really rich data in a user-friendly interface.
Thanks, Brian. That's really great. It's helpful. So for those of you that have put questions into your chat, thank you. We'll address those in a second. If any of you have some, please type them in there, and we'll address them now. I love that this question is coming up around actual individuals represented by these numbers. Thank you I see a couple folks are asking, is this just a statistical tool or are these actual individuals? And yes, this is a statistical tool. As Brian mentioned, the methodology is pulling from many data resources. You want to speak a little bit to that, Brian, in terms of the intention there?
The data that is driving behind this largely comes from the Employment Security Department for the state of Washington, but it's also combined with, again, IPEDS data from the university and college system, as well as a lot of labor market information provided both by the state and from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So this is all, a lot of it's just publicly available data. We have to be very, very careful getting to what we would call actual people. Would, you know, that would require a much higher level of security in terms of what we could provide publicly. Yeah,
not available.
Not available publicly.
It's too confidential. Yeah. So I appreciate, I see that some folks are asking the questions that are in our business services team that are wanting to connect business with talent. And so thank you for thinking that way. What's great is we have partnerships with all of the community and technical colleges in Seattle and King County. And so through those relationships, we can build connections and meet those graduates and those individuals. Brian, do you want to address another question that might be popping up?
I think one of the major ones is, what does this interface with in terms of other systems? Again, that's why we kind of go through that every couple of year process. There's a database backbone that powers this application, and it requires us to actually pull in data from other places and push it through an infrastructure. So it's not an active interface with any outside external systems, and it's most likely not going to move in that direction because of the way that data is updated. Even at the state levels, data is only refreshed on a periodic basis. So we tried to come up with what would be the optimal timeline, both cost-wise and efficiency-wise and validity-wise in terms of the data. And right now we've come up with about a period of every 2 years for doing data refreshes.
And so to speak specifically to those of you on the call that are in the WorkSource Seattle King County system or linked to one of our projects and grants, this is a companion tool to some of the other tools that you do use. For example, worksourcewa.com or JobScan or Career Coach, and some of those other web-based tools to connect talent and job seekers with business and industry. So this is a standalone for the reasons Brian mentioned, with confidentiality, some of those important security concerns, as well as keeping the data clean. So thank you for those questions.
And another question that's come up from time to time is whether or not this could be a substitute for the occupations and demand listing in terms of determining eligibility for training funds. It is not a substitute for that. However, it can help inform decisions around the occupations and demand listing. One example could be that if an occupation shows as either balanced or not in demand on the occupations and demand listing, it could also be used as data to help validate a decision for changing the status on that listing. So I know that question has come up in the past, and it's really just, it's a data source to help guide discussions and decisions, and everything from, you know, for, again, as Hannah mentioned, for the employers to look at how they are looking at their education requirements for positions, as well as job seekers looking to see, you know, what the occupations that are, you know, projected to truly be in demand, whether it's because of a supply shortage or growth, or even replacement demand, what those occupations might look like and what the opportunities might look like for them to move into some of those occupations.
Great. And we have a follow-up question that came up just asking again about worksourcewa.com. And for those of you that aren't aware of what that is the statewide platform that helps connect industry and job seekers. And thank you for that question. Because of the complex infrastructure of this widget, and as you might imagine how much the backend, how complex the backend is, we have made some updates to the functionality with the data refresh, but we're not able to have it be a severe kind of cross-linking intricate tool, and we probably don't want it to be because of how much change happens within different websites. So thank you for that question. That's really creative thinking. But again, I think that's how we need to be creative as users of this tool, of how we connect the dots in the relationships and conversations that we're in. So thank you for that. So Brian, any final words or reflections as we're transitioning out of this demo portion?
One thing is that we are always looking for feedback on the application, the data that's in it, how it's presented, because we can periodically look at making those types of refreshes, whether it's in the interface or in the data itself, and what that presentation may look like. So if there is feedback that you want to provide that could be used to improve the application, we are more than welcome to hear it.
So I do see a question in regards to this demo, or if there is a YouTube video that might help clients that we're working with. So we do have this webinar recording today's that we're still in the process of recording, as well as the initial webinar recording. And both of those links have been shared through the Learning Exchange if you're a part of the WorkSource Seattle-King County system. They are also available on our website, seekingwdc.org, and we will be sharing them as well. So thank you for that interest. And yes, I know that staff have shared the link to this recording with clients. But as Brian shared and demonstrated, it is a complex tool, and so it is useful, I think, in a one-to-one level as well, just to help people see the utility in a customized way. So feel free to do that in your relationships, and yes, please forward on these links. So finally, Brian's going to pop up a slide here that just has a few notes on additional resources that we offer. If we covered some questions, thank you all. So a few other resources that we mentioned as companion tools, and some of you on this call may be completely new to us. You may have seen the link to this webinar in our press release that went out, or it was forwarded to you from a colleague. And so if that's the case, we'd love to provide additional resources that you may not be aware of. One of those resources is our business services team. As a part of WorkSource Seattle-King County, we have a team dedicated to each of the focus and watch sectors that Brian was talking about that are in need of talent in our region, that have demand. And so those individuals meet face-to-face with businesses. They have job fairs and hiring events, and they customize packages of service for those individual businesses. So we provide those. You can see a list of their contact information on that website linked there, worksourceskc.org, and even on our site, seekingwdc.org. A couple other tools there. We're a proud partner with JobScan at the job seeker level. It's a great tool that helps individuals modify their resume in order to be competitive with algorithms out there that keep resumes from moving forward if they don't have certain keywords. So there's just some great tools. We're in the process of updating the Map Your Career and the Self-Sufficiency Calculator, which is based off of the Washington State Self-Sufficiency Standard out of University of Washington. That data is also refreshed, and so we're just glad to be keeping up, making sure that all of our clients and service providers have all the tools that they need. So the final slide here is just a nod to an email address that it's my personal email address here at the WDC. I'm happy to field any questions, and also, as I mentioned in the beginning of our time, send the link to any additional people that you're recommending. Please do forward it on. And as Brian mentioned, we welcome your input, your feedback, and success stories. Some of you saw our annual report, which is visible through our homepage. You can click on our annual report slideshow image on our homepage, seekingwdc.org, and there's some success stories of our projects and grants, and some of them some great reviews of the talent pipeline application. So we love to celebrate how this tool is being used as well. Anything else, Brian? Any closing thoughts?
No, but I really want to emphasize the feedback piece. We would like to get some feedback on the tool. It is something that we want to make sure that we are maintaining over time and that it's useful to all of our customers, regardless of if it's job seekers, employers, businesses, the business services team, case managers, whoever's using it. We really want to make sure that it's a reliable, viable tool.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for all your time investing in community attributes. A shout out to you for all of your hard work and partnership as well. So thanks to each of you for being on the call. Thank you. Look forward to hearing from you via email or face-to-face very soon. All the best.
Thanks, everybody.